There was a Reddit post that's been around for a few years about how dads are native to Home Depot, while lesbians are native to Lowe's. Have you seen this? No? The premise being that these two common types of home improvement shoppers can't mix. But then a follow-up post on Reddit claimed that perhaps this was true at one point, but the two have mixed around so much that trying to separate them back into their respective original ranges would do more harm than good to the delicate ecosystem of chain hardware stores. Personally, I'm glad for the mix because I'm a dad, but I value hanging out with lesbians. I was recently at one of these big chain hardware stores buying a few things. The cashier was a big man who smiled at me as he was ringing me up. He complimented my t-shirt and then commended my brave choice for wearing it in the store. I looked down because I'd forgotten what t-shirt I was wearing. "Have a gay day," it says in big letters on a rainbow background. Cashier went on to say he didn't have a problem with my shirt, liked it in fact, but he knew other guys in the store would take issue with my attire. Honestly, I had not spent much time that morning thinking about the message of my shirt before this cashier brought it up. It did not feel like a risk to me. That's part of my privilege. I felt perfectly safe wearing a shirt that could possibly trigger an unpleasant response, maybe even a verbally threatening response or more. But I didn't even think twice about it when I walked out the door that morning on my way to the hardware store. Now, that's not entirely true. I did think about it back when I bought the shirt at Hot Topic. I don't know, maybe you want your own. I'm just letting you know where I got it. I had thought about it when I was walking around in a park and a pair of younger people said, "Hey, cool shirt," when I walked past them. I thought about it when my gay niece said, "Uncle Douglas has more gay t-shirts than I do." I thought about it when a Methodist colleague nodded in appreciation a month or so before their general conference voted to lift the ban on LGBTQ clergy and same-sex marriage. I was aware of the impact my t-shirt might have when I bought it, and I was reminded a few times along the way of the impact my t-shirt was having. But up until the comment from that cashier saying that I was brave to wear my Have a Gay Day t-shirt at the hardware store, all my thoughts had been about the positive impact my shirt could have. Sometimes being an ally means showing up in a way that can make me uncomfortable. It can be a risk that a more vulnerable person might not be privileged enough to take. In the reading this morning, one of the definitions of an ally was this: being an ally is about recognizing your privilege and then using it in solidarity with marginalized groups to challenge the status quo. The word privilege is important in this conversation, and I have noticed that sometimes conversations about privilege can be misinterpreted as conversations about guilt or making people feel ashamed. If your conversation's about oppression, about land acknowledgements or bathrooms or reparations, if these conversations, as a person of privilege, get stuck in guilt and shame, something is off about those conversations you're having. It doesn't serve you or any vulnerable communities for you as an ally or potential ally to get stuck in feeling guilty or ashamed. It serves the status quo. It serves the oppressor. It serves the dominant culture that does not want change when good liberals like me get stuck and stop trying to change. James Baldwin once said, "People can cry much easier than they can change." Remember, the point is about changing the situation so the people who are getting hurt stop getting hurt. The point is not to flip who gets hurt. The point is not to start oppressing the oppressors. White people having bad feelings about slavery is not the point. Straight people feeling unsafe in the bathroom is not the point. The point is not to flip who gets hurt. The point is for the people who are getting hurt to stop getting hurt. In a 1966 speech delivered at Illinois Wesleyan University, Dr. King said, "It may be true that the law cannot change the heart, but it can restrain the heartless. It may be true that the law cannot make a man love me. Religion and education will have to do that. But it can restrain him from lynching me. And I think that's pretty important too." What Dr. King is highlighting is how changing attitudes is important, but changing behaviors is often enough. Usually, when we think about inclusion and diversity, we're talking about perspectives and attitudes, frameworks, ways of looking at the world. I would like to shift that conversation into behaviors, practices that promote these attitudes and perspectives. I've been thinking about this for a bit, and here are a few practices that I have found to be an ally and eventually be perhaps an accomplice. An important practice of inclusion that we can do regularly is about listening. I need to listen. But I'm listening for a specific goal. I'm listening to learn more, to educate myself about what's going on and about the experiences of different people from me. Experiences of people with marginalized identities in our society. This is a great tip for life in general. Listen to children, listen to your neighbor, listen to the cashier, listen to elders, listen to anyone out there, with the goal of learning more about the experience of people who are different. And then here's the justice twist. Give a little extra credence to the people who are marginalized and vulnerable in our society when they share their experiences. Any listening is good and worthy, and listening with a little preference for people who are historically marginalized and vulnerable is how we bring a justice element to it. I'm not saying that people who share my identity are always wrong, or that people who are different from me are always right. There are liars and con artists among all types of people. But when people say things like, amplify the voices of people of color, or believe women, or walk a mile in another person's moccasins, the suggestion is to counter the near universal bias people have to dismiss the experiences of those who are suffering. One regular practice of inclusion is to listen in this way. A companion practice is to get into relationships with people who have identities that are different from your own identity. It will help with the listening. Because you can't get everything from a book or a podcast, you need to also meet people and learn directly from them. Another good practice is to spend your privilege. Once you have a good understanding of your privilege, the thing to do is use your privilege for something good. I remember a scene from a movie that I watched years back, and I can't remember the title or really anything else about the movie. But two friends had grown up in the same neighborhood, are teenagers now. One is black, one is white. They're getting into some trouble together, and the police show up. The cops had caught the black teen, and his white friend jumps the cop. Black friend gets away free and runs off while the white friend then is arrested. In an unjust incarceration system, the white friend will have an easier time in prison than the black friend would have. Now that's certainly accomplice level behavior. I'm still working on the ally level work, walking around in my Have a Gay Day t-shirt. But my point is that we can all find ways to leverage our privilege for the good of vulnerable people and communities. Being an ally is about recognizing your privilege and then using it in solidarity with marginalized groups that challenge the status quo. When we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we are refuting the values of uniformity, inequity, and exclusion. The goal is to build something that is more fair, allows more people at the table, that expands the circle, as they say. And do you know what else a person can do to be a good ally? You want more practices that you can grab a hold of about what you can do? Heal. Rest. The world does not need your exhaustion. The better world we're building includes being better for you. Give love. Receive love. It's not all shouting in the streets. It's mutual aid. It's highlighting resources. It's laughter. It's holding space for others simply to breathe. Aboriginal elder, activist, and educator, Dr. Leela Watson, has a fabulous quote that sums it up well. She says, "If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. If you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let's get to work together." Step up. Engage with the injustices that you see, because it is an injustice that includes you. Spend your privilege to make things better through practices of inclusion, through joy, through actions of equity, through behaviors that build the beloved community. As a congregation, we've been trying to serve the needs of the broader community without reinventing the wheel. Instead of creating our own community dinner, we have partnered with another organization that already knows what they're doing. Instead of becoming the folks who visit the encampments of unhoused and homeless people, we're hosting folks who are already doing that, who already have relationship with people. Instead of trying to be the center for trans people to gather, we've become one of the places that trans leaders know they can call on for space. We're using our building to support good work. We're spending our privilege. When I eventually level up to becoming an accomplice, as described from this morning's reading, I'll probably offer another sermon about how to be an accomplice. I know several of you already function as accomplices, but the goal here is not for me or any of us to climb the liberal achievement ladder. Our goal is to build the beloved community. For that, we need to keep doing the piece that we have in front of us to do. And for that, we need each other as we listen, learn, heal, and act for justice. In a world without end, may it be so.